the wars he did go. Broken-hearted I'll wander, broken-hearted I'll remain, since my bonny light horseman in the wars he was slain. When Boney commanded his armies to stand, and proud waved his banners all gaily and grand, he levelled his cannons right over the plain, and my bonny light horseman in the wars he was slain. Oh, Napoleon Bonaparte, you're the cause of my woe, since my bonny light horseman to the wars he did go. Broken-hearted I'll wander, broken-hearted I'll remain, since my bonny light horseman in the wars he was slain. If I was some small bird and had wings and could fly, I would fly o'er the salt seas where my true love does lie. 3 years and 6 months now since he left this bright shore. Oh, my bonny light horseman, will I ne'er see him more? Oh, Napoleon Bonaparte, you're the cause of my woe, since my bonny light horseman to the wars he did go. Broken-hearted I'll wander, broken-hearted I'll remain, since my bonny light horseman in the wars he was slain. And the dove she laments for her mate as she flies. Oh, where, tell me, where is my true love, she sighs. And where in this wide world is there one to compare with my bonny light horseman who was killed in the war? Oh, Napoleon Bonaparte, you're the cause of my woe, since my bonny light horseman to the wars he did go. Broken-hearted I'll wander, broken-hearted I'll remain, since my bonny light horseman in the wars he was slain.
Hello, my friends. So today, behind me, I have. Oh, let me just adjust a couple things here. I have behind me an image of the Lithuanian Parliament building, because today we are discussing a fascinating moment in European history called the case of Drasius Kedys. And give me just a second here, because I'm trying to adjust my video here. Let me see. I had it perfect, and then somehow there we go. Okay. So, the case of Drasius Kedys. I wish this was more well known, because There's two reasons that I'm talking about this affair here, this case. Number one is it fits into a greater pattern that we've seen all across the Western world. A pattern of elite connected, government connected pedophile rings and cover-ups that have been conducted to sweep it all under the rug. This is something that we've seen time and time again in various high-profile cases. I mean, this case should go along with the cases of people like Jeffrey Epstein, the Dutroux affair, all the sexual abuse that's rampant in the American film industry. I mean, there's tons and tons of cases here. High-profile individuals, elite connected individuals having their pedophilic inclinations covered up, accusers being given the runaround, stonewalled by authorities, all this kind of stuff over and over again. We've got sexual abuse by UN peacekeepers. The UN is frequently involved in various sexual abuse allegations involving children, involving young women. And then we could do a whole stream going through the list of various high-profile, elite-connected cases that have just been forgotten, like this Kincora boys' home in Belfast that was involved in a cover-up of decades of child abuse. And here is an article on that particular instance where they allege that the people in charge of this Kincora school were connected with the highest levels of the British establishment. You got the Boy Scouts of America's sexual abuse. I mean, anyway, the BBC, Jersey child abuse investigation. This case just goes along with a growing number of puzzle pieces of just about every single major Western nation has some example of this type of thing, and they're almost never completely resolved. And this was the case in Drasius Kedys's affair as well. So that's the number one thing. But the second thing, and something that's almost more interesting to me in this case, is the reaction from the Lithuanian public. Because something that made me think about this, I remember hearing about this case back in 2019, and we'll come back to that in a little bit, but what got me thinking about this case was somebody on Twitter a few weeks ago mentioned how if only the whole community would rise up together and do something about this or that bit of corruption that's going on. I don't remember exactly what was being referenced there, but somebody on Twitter said something like, if only the whole town would rise up, if only the whole community would rise up together and root out this corruption. Well, that's what happened in Lithuania. This man, Drasius Kedys, this fella right here, I can't point, he took matters into his own hands as a father, and he defended his daughter in the most extreme way possible. And then the community also rallied around his daughter, his surviving sister, and they did their best to prevent the government from taking away this little girl that had been sexually abused and putting her back into the hands of her abusers. Thousands of people supported this man, his daughter, his sister, the family, and we'll get into all the details there. And I don't want you guys to take this as a black pill, but this is something that we have to understand, because the result of this community actually standing up in defense of Drasius Kedys and his daughter was not the kind of result that I would hope for. And despite that, it still, to me, appears as a great example of why individualism is pushed so hard in Western countries and why diversity is being pushed so hard. Because what you have here in this case is an instance of a community that is not suffering from diversity, is not suffering from atomization. This was a community that actually stood together. And they were actually able to do something. Even if they were in the end defeated, they were actually able to do something. And the whole country of Lithuania is a fascinating example of a country that has not yet been broken by diversity, and the sorts of things that they're able to do within politics is fascinating to me. And as a tangent, we're going to get into something that was happening at the same time in Lithuania, where a public rising consciousness was occurring that their government was controlled by a conspiratorial cabal that they called the Statesmen. And that was going on in parallel to this affair. And I believe that there's a connection there that I can't fully explain, but we'll get into it. So let's see what's going on with the chat before I continue here. Akisoft. I remember Germ from like 2017. Yeah, that was a while ago. I started in 2016, so you're an OG. Blackmail operations. Yes, I think it has something to do with that, but okay, so let's get into the details of this case. I found a nice article here on truelithuania.com that gives a very succinct summary with some photographs. So we'll start by reading this. On October 15th, 2012, general parliamentary elections took place in Lithuania. Some of the elected party names are likely to be familiar to anybody: the Christian Democrats, Labor, Social Democrats, Liberals. However, the new Drąsius Kedys, the Way of Courage movement, also gained seats, receiving 8% of the vote. The party's origins in a single controversial 2009 murder/child custody/pedophilia case may be hard to believe for outsiders. This was a huge case in Lithuania at the time. Massive public consciousness around this case. For 4 years already, Lithuania has been torn by the unfolding drama, now called the Garliava story, after a suburb of Kaunas. This is a group of intertwined criminal cases with at least 2 people murdered and 2 more dead in mysterious circumstances. In the opinion of a significant part of Lithuania's population, morality and law stand on different sides in the Garliava story. Here is an explanation of that story, as one is likely to encounter the issue in Lithuania, in the form of public protests, jokes, and heated debates. Girls' rape video testimony shocks Lithuania. It all came to public attention in 2009, in August of 2009, when Drasius Kedys, a father of a then 5-year-old girl, provided every major media company with a copy of a video recording where his own daughter tells how she was molested and raped by pedophiles. Media reported this but refused to air the complete recording due to children's rights protection. Instead, they interviewed Drasius Kedys, who claimed that due to the influence of purported pedophiles, he was unable to find any redress in the Lithuanian justice system and was forced to adopt desperate measures. Now, this came after other events. Now, the first thing that happened was his daughter was born in 2004. They broke up in 2006. Drasius and his girlfriend, Laimuta. They broke up in 2006 and became embroiled in a bitter custody battle. His former girlfriend, with the help of this politician and advisor to the Speaker of the Seimas, Drąsius, pretty high up guy connected with some high up individuals in the government, obtained custody of the girl in November of 2006. Kedys had visitation rights, but his girlfriend gave up custody rights to the father. We're not exactly sure why. I think it might mention okay, here it mentions in the other article that she couldn't afford to take care of the child. But then in 2008, Kedys submitted a formal complaint to the police, claiming that Drąsius, an advisor to the Speaker of the Parliament, paid his girlfriend, Statesmen, to sexually molest his daughter. In February of 2009, Kedys further pressed accusations against Violetta Venckienė. I'm never going to pronounce these Lithuanian names correctly, I'm sorry. A sister of his girlfriend, claiming that the former had allowed men to molest his 4-year-old daughter. In July of 2009, Kedys also accused Jonas Firmanavičius, a district judge, an unidentified individual known only as Kedys, of partaking in the molestation. All those people, except for the unidentified Kedys, professed their innocence and in turn accused Kedys of slander, criminal libel, and death threats. So, I have a clip. This is the son of Kedys' sister, so it's Kedys' nephew, who lived a good portion of his life outside of Chicago after his mom fled from Lithuania, which we'll talk about later. This is his description of some of these events, especially the videotape. We'll skip to that part real quick.
Her mother told my grandma and her father that her mother's friends are licking her. Soon the girl opened up more and told about everything that was going on in the mother's house.
Kojas tokios ilgos va, ir čia taip pat.
Storas.
O įšalas tavo koks.
O
čia skystis, vėldavo kremas tas ir mane tepdavo.
She told stories about 3 men, Jonas, Andrus, and Idas. While my uncle wasn't able to find out who Idas was, Andrus turned out to be a businessman who's also an advisor to the Speaker of the Parliament, and Jonas turned out to be a district court judge. But no charges were filed. And one day, my uncle disappeared.
Okay. I heard people saying that I'm echoing. How is it now? I'm waiting for confirmation that I'm not echoing still. I don't want to keep going if I'm echoing. It's better now? Okay, good. Okay. So as you saw in this video, the little girl was pretty graphic with her descriptions of what happened. And because the father basically had no recourse legally, he was being stonewalled. by the legal system, he released this video to the media to try to get some justice. It says here, okay, continuing, on the 29th of November in 2008, Kedys submitted a formal complaint to the police, claiming that Drąsius paid his girlfriend to sexually molest his daughter. And on that basis, in 2008, December of 2008, Kedys obtained full custody of his daughter with no visitation rights for his ex-girlfriend. The courts repeatedly confirmed that the girlfriend had no case to answer, thus dismissing Kedys' allegations against his former girlfriend as unsubstantiated. So even though they admit, basically through their actions, by giving the daughter to Kedys under full custody with no visitation from the girlfriend, they still drop any kind of criminal case against her and state that the allegations are unsubstantiated. The pretrial investigation against Drąsius continued. In February of 2009, Kedys further pressed accusations against Violetta, the girlfriend's sister, claiming that the former had participated with allowing men to molest his 4-year-old daughter. In July of 2009, Kedys accused Jonas Fermanovicius, a district judge, and an individual known as Adis. Okay, we went over all that. Frustrated with the lack of progress, like I said, and convinced that his case was being stonewalled, he sent out these DVDs to Lithuanian politicians, media outlets, etc. And that's kind of where the case stood. And the next event in this story is something that I'm not sure how to explain. The next thing that happened was, allegedly, Fermanovicius, the judge, and the Venckienė, I don't know his girlfriend, were found shot dead in Kaunas. The two people that Kedys were accusing, or two of the people of the group of people that Kedys was accusing, were found dead in Kaunas. Kedys became the primary suspect. Now, all we can do is speculate here. There's no way for us to know what really happened. Did Kedys murder these guys? I don't know. Did he take justice into his own hands and go and kill them? Or, if you really want to get as conspiratorial as possible, did these people have their deaths faked in order to blame Kedys and also sort of retire these people, put them into like fucked up witness protection type of a situation where they fake their deaths and then set them up with a life somewhere else, away from the notoriety that they have obtained. I don't know. I don't know what really happened. Nobody knows what really happened. But apparently these two were found dead, and Kedys became the prime suspect. A national search was announced, and shortly after, an international search, because they assumed that he left the country. A couple of Kedys' friends were charged with accessory to murder, and apparently the story caused an uproar in Lithuania, with much of the public siding with Kedys. Because in the public's mind, the case was seen as a father's futile attempt in pursuing justice and protecting his daughter, being driven to desperate measures by the anger of the injustice. Others questioned whether the killings were, in fact, commissioned by Kedys himself. Okay. Then, after Kedys goes missing, 6 months of search occurs. They are searching for him for months and months until Kedys' body is found dead in a reservoir near Kaunas. Official autopsies at the time claimed that his cause of death was choking on vomit while being heavily intoxicated. However, his relatives were convinced that Kedys was murdered. And in this case, I think this probably is what happened. He probably was murdered. Because, let's go back to this video by the nephew of Kedys.
Murder of a woman and a high-profile judge in Lithuania is believed to have fled the country. Police say Drasius Kedys killed his victims because he believed they molested his 4-year-old daughter.
That day, my cousin was taken from the daycare and put in a psychiatric hospital, while the second girl, who according to my cousin was also abused and whose mother was shot, was taken by her father, and they moved away to Germany, where they were never seen again. The prosecutors announced on national TV that there were DNA evidence found on the murder weapon that confirmed that my uncle committed the crime. Much later was an...
Did I just hear a friggin' alarm chirp? Or a smoke alarm chirp? Come on.
announced that the prosecutors
You ain't white if you got smoke alarm chirps in the background.
made a mistake and no DNA was found. Around a week later after the killings, my mom managed to get the custody of my cousin and she was finally able to come home. The case was finally started, and it was concluded that the prosecutors neglected to investigate my cousin's claims. And
Sorry, I'm trying to find... He includes a picture of Kedys's face after he was found dead. Where is it?
many of the officials involved lost their jobs, including the general prosecutor. My mom, who was a judge at the time, started to publicly talk about corruption and bribery in the Lithuanian courts. The media constantly attacked my family, writing articles and creating shows based purely on speculation and absolutely no evidence. These journalists...
By the way, guys, like the video, please. Hit it with the thumbs up. There's 44 people watching, only 3 thumbs up. Hit the like, please.
Received no consequences, while the journalists that supported my mom often were fined, or their shows even prohibited to air. In April, the prosecutors announced that my uncle Drąsius is hiding in Spain. The next day, his body was found by the lake in Kaunas, Lithuania. The investigators ruled that his death was an accident, a statement that many Lithuanians have trouble believing. I'm gonna put up a picture of my uncle after death. The image is shocking, so if you're under the age of 18 or you just don't think you can look at it, please look away for the next 5 seconds. This is what a man...
There you go. So this guy was beat to shit and most likely drowned. And the family had an independent... Where is it? So the officials said that the cause of death was choking on vomit while being heavily intoxicated. However, the blah, 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 they demanded a second opinion from independent experts. In 2011, April 2011, a report was received from the Swedish National Forensic Service confirming Kedys had died from alcohol and drug poisoning and that he choked on the contents of his own stomach. The Swedish report differed from the Lithuanian experts, though, in determining that the injuries on the body appeared before his death and that the possibility of drowning is not excluded. There are other statements that I found, which I found them like a week ago and I couldn't find them again tonight preparing for this live stream, but apparently there were no contents of his stomach in his lungs. So when you look at the image here and you compare these autopsy reports, the inconsistencies between these autopsy reports, it really seems to me like it's obvious that this guy was murdered. I don't see how anyone can believe that he was just, after being on the run for 6 months, he gets wasted and drowns in a reservoir, it just doesn't seem like a likely story. But anyways, following Kedys's death, this is the big part of the story for me. Following Kedys's death, his daughter was given custody to Kedys's sister, Neringa. And so let's carry on here under the custody fight. It was given to Kedys's sister, Venckienė, Neringa. In May of 2010, the court gave of the girl to the biological mother, the woman that Kedys accused of pimping out their daughter. Outraged by this decision, according to different sources, up to 2,000 people surrounded Venckienė's home and would not let the police pass. After the continued protests and demonstrations, the court reversed its decision to transfer custody of the girl to the mother. But in 2011, the custody was once again awarded to the biological mother. The vigil outside Venckienė's home started again. On March 23, 2012, police surrounded the house and attempted to take the girl by force. The girl refused to go. The failed attempt was broadcast on national television. People were outraged at the footage of the mother and her bodyguard attempting to pull the screaming girl away from the grandmother. This attempt was stopped by Child Protective Services, stating that it was traumatizing the child. After the 23rd of March, the girl developed PTSD. And then, just a couple months later, on the 17th of May, that's Norwegian Independence Day, at 6 a.m., bright and early in the morning, 240 police officers went to Venckienė's home. The police shut down the roads, closed the local school, and enforced a lockdown of a 2-mile perimeter around Venckienė's house. The protesters were pulled aside, 39 of them arrested, and police used rubber sticks, electric shock, police dogs, tear gas, and rubber bullets. After a failed attempt to get in the house through the main entrance, the police broke the side glass door. They turned off the security cameras inside the house, and the girl was carried away screaming. After the girl was transferred, the footage of the police operation went viral. Around 200 people spontaneously showed up to protest at the presidential palace in Vilnius. Smaller protests occurred in other Lithuanian cities as well. President Dalia Grybauskaitė addressed the nation, requesting an investigation into whether force was used against the girl. On the 19th of May, according to various sources, 1,000 to 5,000 of Venckienė's supporters protested at the presidential palace in Vilnius. On the same day, the president attended a NATO summit in Chicago. A few hundred Lithuanian Americans surrounded his car and would not let her pass. On the 26th of May, a few thousand of Venckienė's supporters marched from the Seimas building to the presidential palace. So, this is an amazing thing to see. Even if it was not successful. It's just, you love to see a community come together and decide that they are not going to just let the government get their way. They decided that they're not going to just roll over and let things happen. They forced the government to come in with hundreds of riot police with their batons and their shock, like cattle prod type things and tear gas and everything else, and go full mask off in pulling this little girl out, kicking and screaming from her house. Now, This is what I mean by there are really no political solutions. Because clearly the public opinion did not matter to the government. And the only thing that could have actually prevented this from happening was if the community had their own like militia force ready to literally fight back these police to the death. That's the only way that this could have gone any differently. We have to realize that the people who are running things right now are not, they don't care about the public opinion. They don't care about outcry. And this case teaches us that, and it also teaches us the fact that they know, the elites know, that they can do shit like this, and as long as they just hold on long enough, people just forget about it. People just go on with their lives. You know, it's the average person, unfortunately, like, cannot sacrifice all the time in the world to stand out in front of a little girl's house and defend her from the police trying to take her away day and night for days and months and years on end. The average person just can't do that. The average person has, unfortunately, all kinds of other concerns in their daily lives that the elites know if they just hold off long enough, people will forget, they'll move on, and it won't really even be as big of an issue anymore. And this is what we see in this case. And so there's kind of a duality to this case, where on one hand, at least Lithuania had the unity, the sense of community, the sense of togetherness, the sense of righteousness, and sort of a parallel, natural, community-based hierarchy that was independent of the state, that was able to at least resist this much. They were at least able to resist to this degree. Whereas in America, and this is probably the case in most other large Western countries, England, Germany, France, we have already had our communities diluted, broken, atomized, diversified to the point where this type of action is practically inconceivable at this point for us. People are just way too atomized. Nobody feels like they're a part of a bigger community. Nobody feels like they will sacrifice their time and money and effort or put themselves in the line of fire to defend a neighbor's daughter, or even to defend a friend's daughter in this way. So this is one of the reasons that our governments are pushing things like diversity. It removes our ability to do something like this. You have to have a homogeneous and unified group where people actually care about each other enough to have something like this happen. And it's unfortunate, I mean, if that they couldn't respond with the same level of force as the government, but it's still nice to see that somewhere in the world, people are still united enough for this to happen. So the public outcry was intense, and it was great enough to get Kedys's sister, after Kedys died, it was great enough to get Kedys' sister elected under a new political party called the Way of Courage. And she got elected to parliament as a member of this party. And the Way of Courage party, their whole platform was to root out this kind of corruption, and pedophilia networks and other, problems going on in the government. She was one of the most popular politicians for a while, for a short while, I should say, in Lithuania. She was growing in popularity very quickly. 6 of her supporters, actually, in that party got elected to the parliament. And what happened within a year, basically, of her getting elected into parliament? The rest of the parliament voted to remove her legal immunity. So when she got elected, she obtained legal immunity. And she was being attacked and prosecuted by the government basically for making the types of claims and allegations about the government that she was making. They wanted her put in jail for making these claims about the government. And after they voted to remove her legal immunity, she fled to the United States and actually lived basically kind of like undercover outside of Chicago for 5 years. There are certain layers to this. Germ's elucidatory method doesn't rely on deep dive explication as a way of taking explanatory ease in minutes for cerebral koomies. I don't know what the hell that guy's talking about. Anyway, so since she got to Chicago, the Lithuanian authorities were requesting extradition of her back to Lithuania. These were the 39 criminal charges: illegal surveillance, disrespecting the national anthem, public statements to infringe on the sovereignty of Lithuania, attempting to overthrow the government, spying, being a threat to the state. These charges were later dropped. But she was actually extradited back to Lithuania. And as far as I can tell, there has been no resolution on this case. And the ultimate fate of Kedys's daughter at this point, like I said, as far as I can tell, is unknown. On Neringa Venckienė's Facebook page, there's a post that I'm not going to go try to find right now, but you can find it if you want. There is a post where she says, basically, where is this girl now? Where is my niece now? They don't even know what happened to her. And that's unfortunately where this case ends. In 2019, she was extradited back to Lithuania. She stood trial, and they basically just released her, and it's fizzled into nothing. However, the final tangent that I will take here is a parallel phenomenon going on in Lithuania at the time. So this was from 2006 to 2010 primarily. And this case happened in 2009, 2010, 2012, somewhere around there. There was a massive phenomenon in Lithuania where journalists, independent journalists, politicians, and people calling themselves patriots, under a party called the Homeland Union, accused the government of being controlled by a deep state of unelected officials based in their Ministry of Foreign Affairs and State Security Department, VSD. It's like their equivalent of the CIA. And this also obtained pretty popular support from the public. It says here, according to Valdas, I'm not going to say that last name, the editor-in-chief of this publication, who was later a member of the Way of Courage party, which is the party connected with Kedys, said that the Statesmen are a clan-like group of persons connected by constant mutual relations, distribution of roles and tasks among group members. It is highly organized and a hierarchical organization, with this guy being the leader. It has control of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the State Security Department, the President of Lithuania, the police, the military, political sciences faculty at Vilnius University, and is connected with the courts, political parties, and the media. This fellow was described as a whistleblower and a VSD official, that's their CIA again, who was aware of the conspiracy and was killed for attempting to reveal it to the media. The specific information differed. In 2008, he claimed, the whistleblower, or this fella, the guy who was connected with the Way of Courage party, claimed that this guy, the whistleblower, investigated the connections between the Statesmen and the energy company, Dujo Takana, as well as the company's influence in government institutions. Later in 2014, he claimed that the CIA agent was aware of a CIA black site near Vilnius and the alleged bribes to the VSD officials which allowed its creation. So this goes on. This is interesting. In 2007, he claimed that the Statesmen conspired to raise attention toward LGBT rights in Lithuania to distract attention from their case. So all this a lot of this came out after a member of the VSD, Pokiunas, was found dead. And allegedly he was killed for being a whistleblower and leaking information about this conspiracy. The president at the time of the whole Kedys affair, let's see if I could find the president at the time, not this guy, was from a family that was in the Soviet Union's intelligence service. Let's see. This woman, Dahlia. Her dad was in the Soviet intelligence agency during World War II. So that's just an interesting fact. But anyway, so this whole affair was big in Lithuania. I'm sure every Lithuanian knows about it. And the fact that this party was also exposing how their entire government is controlled by a secret deep state that uses like classic Western tactics like promoting LGBT rights to distract from the accusations against them. It's just amazing to see. And apparently there was a revival in 2023 of sort of consciousness of this theory when a book was published called The Whistleblower and the President, which described alleged business and VSD involvement in this guy's campaign, who was a banker, during the 2019 presidential election, including illegal collection of personal information. After the publication of the book, MPs of the Farmers and Greens Union alleged that the book was published to discredit the incumbent president and proposed an investigation into statesman activity. but the proposal did not find support even among the opposition. In January 2024, the chief advisor, Friderikas Janssonas, claimed that appointments to vacant ambassador positions are delayed due to statesman sabotage, and alleged that the conspiracy group is allied with the Simonite cabinet. He identified members of the government, such as Zygimantas, as members of the list of statesmen. And this is another interesting fact about this list of statesmen. These people, another great feature of being a small community, being a small, unified, homogenous country, is these people know who to point the finger at. They've named names. This list is like they're pointing out names. You know, they're showing you who needs to be arrested and put in jail. And obviously people in the West do the same thing, but it just doesn't seem to have the same kind of punch as it does in a country like Lithuania. So, unfortunately, despite their ability to do this, despite them being like 2 or 3 steps ahead of any other Western country in terms of like having this community grassroots level of support, they were not prepared to meet the government in force. They were not prepared to actually respond with the same level of force as the government. And this is something I've said in the past. I've been saying this for years. It's one of my like key positions when I argue with people who advocate for political solutions, getting people elected, performing activism, etc. If we don't have a group that can actually match the force that will be used against us, then it's kind of pointless, because they will always take it to that level. Even when there are thousands of people, even when the faces are known, the names are known, art is being produced in support of it, protesters are sitting around doing 24/7 vigil to defend this little girl from getting taken from her house. Large groups of people are showing up to defend them. And yet, in the end, the government comes in with a small show of force, and it's all done. It's all over. And they just kind of hold their ground, and the years go by, and people forget. Anger dissipates. The energy fizzles out, and things just return to status quo. So that is unfortunate, and it's a reality that people have to contend with. There's no way that we will ever get these people out through like fair and legitimate elections, because they do not, to them, democracy and the elections and all these other like mechanisms of government, they're not like a moral code to live by. They are tools in their hands. And these are tools to just get the people to listen to them. They're tools to get the people to follow along and to think that their opinion matters, to think that they're participating. But that's all it is. It's just a tool. It's not, if that tool ever turned against them, if that tool ever broke, they're not going to like abide by a democratic system that is against them. They'll just revert back to pure force and violence. And so that's the main takeaway that I want you to get from this story is this is the reality that we're dealing with. The people in charge, the people who are ruling our countries, when push comes to shove, they will respond with escalating force until they're either met with the same degree of force or the opposition backs down. So, yeah, someone in the chat is asking about the Dutroux affair. I've got it up right here. At the start of the stream, I compared this affair to numerous other sexual abuse and child pedophilia rings in history. And the Dutroux affair is definitely one that follows a similar pattern. So, but yeah, it's crazy. It's not good, but it's a reality that we have to deal with. So let's that's it. We can let's finish watching this video by the nephew of Kedys, and that's all I got on the Kedys case. We could talk about some other things if you all would like. You can ask any questions you want in the chat. So yeah, let's.
And who chokes while drinking looks like. In May of that year, the court announced that my cousin has to live with her mother, the mother that she's testifying against. The court ruled in favor of the mother, even though the psychologist determined that the girl has a very strong connection with her father, the grandparents, and her aunt Naringa. And the reason that she doesn't want to go to live with her mother is because 3 men would come to her mother's house. The girl refused to go, and thousands of Lithuanians surrounded our house and would not let the police pass.
Presidente Geda! Presidente Geda! Presidente Geda!
Ir dar sykį noriu pakartoti ir mūsų pozicija oficiali, mes nesiruošime naudoti prievartos prieš jus.
In June, Andrius Usas fell off his four-wheeler, took off his helmet, and drowned in a puddle. On March 23, 2012, the police surrounded the house and tried to take my cousin by force.
It's so fucked up to see this happen, by the way. Because I wish this kind of thing would have happened back during like COVID lockdowns and all that other shit. There's so much stuff that we've tolerated in the West that it's unbelievable to me. And it's inspiring, like I said, to see this type of thing in another country and to see, you know, a community stand together. But it's also depressing that we just don't have that, and how will we ever get that back in such a diverse country? I mean, I keep saying it, but this is the reason, one of the main reasons for pushing diversity. There was I don't know if did you see that some, let me see if I could pull it up real quick. Some group of political scientists or some corporation commissioned a study, diversity, that it reduces the chance of like workers unionizing. Let's see. Here's one thing. I don't think this is it, but Amazon's plan to neutralize powerful unions by hiring ex-inmates and vulnerable students. This isn't exactly what I was looking for, but there's something out there that I read where some corporation commissioned a study that concluded that like diversity is one of the best ways to prevent workers from unionizing. It's like at every level, they want us atomized. They want our communities broken, and the ethnic community is the like #1 nucleus around which any kind of unity can be created. So, sorry, let's continue with this. And this video gives me chills, man, because this could be my wife and my daughter. This could be your wife and your daughter. Don't ever forget that this is ultimately what could happen to you. And this is like the way things are going. This is, in a number of countries, my opinions, this channel, this stream right here, what I'm saying to you right now, and the things that I've said in the past, even innocuous academic things like questioning history, questioning historical events the way that we've been told, that alone is enough to get them to send armed men to your house to take away your kids. And who's going to come to your defense? Who's going to stand out in front of your house 24/7 to keep the police from taking your daughter away? Think about that.
On May 17th, 240 police officers came to our house and carried my cousin away screaming.
That man could have been your grandpa. And forget pointing out the politicians too in the whole like Statesman conspiracy or whatever. How about we get some people to identify these fucking thugs? These fucking idiots. Oh, I gotta earn my paycheck. I must earn a paycheck, so I guess I must go in and pull the screaming little girl from her aunt and give her back to the pedophile. I'll sleep good tonight knowing that I did my job well. Fucking assholes. Fuck these guys.
Čia pastiprinimas.
Let me just say that was a good front door. What a fucking strong door.
Aš įspėjau, kad bet koks draudimas vykdyti antrąjį teismo sprendimą bus traktuojamas kaip nusikalstama veika. Reikalauja visiems pakeisti išmokius protokolą.
Dabar aš paaiškinu. Teismo sprendime pasakyta, kad prievarta vaiko atžvilgiu negalima. Ir jūs, vaicekautinį, nepamirškite prie vaiko nei piršto. Įsivesti savo kompaniją.
Aš ir
Prašau,
jeigu galim.
I haven't seen my cousin ever since. After that day, there were massive protests in Lithuania.
He hasn't seen his cousin since. How fucked up is that? Nobody even knows what happened to her, how she's doing these days.
And abroad. The media started to speculate that my mom could potentially run against the president in 2 years. Just a few days after the protest, there were 5 charges brought against my mom. The parliament removed my mother's legal immunity, even though the prosecutors refused to provide all evidence. After the removal of her legal immunity, my mother resigned, while the chairman of the commission to investigate her challenged her to run against them. My mom founded a new political party, which won 7 seats in the parliament while having almost zero funding. Her campaign promised to reform the judicial and political system in Lithuania, with stricter punishments for corruption, rape, and pedophilia. Soon after the election, the general prosecutor asked the parliament to remove my mom's legal immunity once again, but this time there was one additional crime. The Liberals, the Conservatives, and the Social Democrats all announced that they're gonna vote in favor of removing my mom's legal immunity even before any evidence was presented.
This guy's got to fix the fucking batteries in his smoke alarm.
And before the ruling of the parliamentary commission. The parliament voted that the prosecutor has to provide the secret recording from the day that my cousin was taken. The prosecutor refused to do so, later showing only 12 seconds of the video. In 2013, my mother and I fled to the United States and asked for political asylum. But 2 weeks ago, the federal marshals showed up at our house. The Lithuanian government is seeking my mom's extradition back to Lithuania before the political asylum case is over. The number of crimes that my mom is accused of grew to 39, including contempt of the court, assault, illegal surveillance, psychological molestation, public statements to infringe the sovereignty of Lithuania, and many others. My grandparents, my aunts and uncles, my neighbors, my mom's supporters, and many of her party members are all facing charges, and some of them have already been sentenced. A famous Lithuanian doctor that testified that Drąsius came to her office to remove a birthmark from his sex organ is now facing charges of false testimony.
Pas mane atėjo labai keista šeima. Vyras, stambus, dvi moteriškės, viena jaunutė, kita vyresnė ir mergaitė. Kad jis turi dėmę ant lyties organo ir prašė, kad aš ją pašalinčiau. Jis išsėmė savo lyties organą, sėdint abiems moteriškiams ir per metrą nuo manęs sėdint mergaitė.
My mother will never receive a fair trial in Lithuania because the journalists and the politicians already agreed that she's going to be sentenced. The chairman of the Supreme Court of Lithuania called my mom an abscess in the judicial and political system of Lithuania. How can she receive a fair trial when the highest court officials in Lithuania are making public statements like this? I understand that this might sound like a conspiracy theory, but over 10 people connected to this case have died. A few years ago, my grandparents' car was hit by a truck. And during one of my mom's campaign rallies, all 5 bolts of the car wheel unscrewed themselves at the same time. If my mom is sent back to Lithuania, she will not receive a fair trial, and there is a serious threat to her life. Please sign the petition that's in the description of this video.
Okay, that's it. That's the case of Drasius Kedys. So we can move on to other topics if you all would like. I have nothing else going on. So what are you guys thinking about today? I've got some Twitter posts we could talk about if you want. Let's see. So what are you all up to tonight? Greenfest says, next week, screen the Blair Witch Project. I don't think I'll do that. I never actually watched the Blair Witch Project all the way through. Oh, Schmuck Puppet says, I had a question about the origin of the American flag. Yes. So he mentioned that the American flag is a carbon copy of the East India Company flag. And I can see the resemblance, obviously. There's definitely a resemblance there. And I'm sympathetic to conspiracies about the East India Company and not just the British East India Company, but basically all East India companies. I can see, suspecting that they had way more power behind the scenes than we would, be told by history. But I am not familiar. I haven't gone down that rabbit hole myself. I've kind of just seen mentions of it. But definitely a fascinating history to the British East India Company. It always reminds me, when I think about the East India Company, of that one quote that I can't remember who said it. It was a British politician. I'll have to look for it later, but it was a British politician who said something along the lines of, when other members were talking about the abuses or the horrific actions that had to be taken to establish the British state in India, he said something like, the foundations of every state are hidden by a veil of secrecy. They're always necessarily hidden by a veil of secrecy. And so my imagination always goes wild when I think about what was really happening. I'd love to be a fly on the wall during key moments of the British East India Company when they took over India. It's who knows what kind of crazy shit was going on at that time. Green Fez says, split screen over green screen. Well, too bad. I'm green screen tonight. Schmuck Puppet continues. 13 stripes, 13 colonies, 13 tribes of Israel, because Joseph's tribe was split in two. I mean, I'm not big on like tribes of Israel type of ideas. I don't know too much about that. It's too hard to verify. It's not consequential for me. Yusuf says they bribed the Maharaja with nude Renaissance paintings. They told him that they would send Bob's and Vagana. Bobby Barrow says, internet is somewhat dead and social gatherings in real life have decreased since COVID. How can we most effectively expose government corruption? That's a good question. I don't know. It's hard to say. One of the better, I guess, like psyops on our side that I've seen lately was from the guys from GTV, Goyim TV, who I was never really a fan of their style of content. I always found that like their main GTV guy, I always found him a little crass, but his work on Omegle or whatever like random video chat website that he's a part of, his work there to convince young women about the you-know-whos is so funny. The way he does it is so funny. I'm trying to find... I know I liked one of the posts recently here. Let's see. Hopefully it wasn't taken down. I like way too many posts on Twitter. Should be less frivolous with my likes. Can't find things when I want to find them. Here we go. Here's one.
Oh my god, thank you.
Thank you. What are you guys doing? Are you knitting?
Painting. We were painting earlier.
Oh, what are you painting?
I'm painting. You know who BoJack Horseman is?
No. No, what's it about?
It's like a TV show about like a horse, like a cartoon horse. He used to be famous in the 90s, and like he had a TV show, and he was a horse. But then he like it's like kind of fucked up. Not gonna lie, like towards the end.
What happened? Really
what happened? My painting's not that good.
Okay, so what's your guys' thoughts about Jewish people?
It's a work in progress. Huh?
What's your guys' thoughts about Jewish people?
Jewish people?
Yes.
They're great. They're cool.
Okay.
I have a crush on a boy who's half Jewish.
Well, I'm actually Jewish myself.
Okay.
And I'm getting death threats.
Oh my god. From who?
The Jewish community.
What?
It sounds weird, right? Okay.
Yes.
So I want to take time because I'm trying to stop anti-Semitism with honesty.
Right.
Okay. And I think honesty is the best policy, okay?
Right.
So are you guys familiar with the circumcision?
Yes.
Okay, so I was circumcised, but in the synagogue they do it a little bit different. It's called the bris milah or matzeh v'peh, okay? And when I was 3 days old, I contracted herpes from a rabbi. I want you to read this for me.
Okay, says someone's already F alert. I'm assuming he means the FAG word. He's doing this to like disarm their cognitive programming, essentially. He's like defusing a bomb by presenting himself as a gay Jew. Like he presents himself as a gay Jew to these young women and says some very red-pilling facts, and it completely like circumvents their like programmed defenses, because if he just talked like a normal straight guy, a normal straight white man, there's just like no way to get through. The wall is there before they even start talking. But by acting like a gay Jew, he's actually able to get through to. I've seen like 4 or 5 of these clips where he's actually able to talk sense to these young women who otherwise never, ever, ever would have listened to ideas like this. And he does it successfully. Like, by the end of this, he's...
Or people say it's Trump, or people say it's bigger than that, okay? It's the media, it's COVID. Do you see all the COVID people that are Jewish that are involved?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what are you feeling right now? Do you feel like do you think do you feel like I'm crazy, or do you think that, like,
no.
I should be speaking out if my Jewish people are doing this, correct?
No, I agree.
And it's, do you know who controls, like, whoever prints the money controls everyone, right?
Right.
Do you know who prints the money in the United States?
Like the government.
Yes. Well, it's not the government. It's called the Federal Reserve, okay?
Yeah, like in Philadelphia.
Yes. So this is all the people.
I think I visited that.
These are all the people that are behind the Federal Reserve. What are we noticing, ladies?
They're all Jewish.
Yes.
I like how he has the eyes for Bernanke, like fucking, like he's a demon.
Yes. Okay. So, do you understand why I'm getting death threats? Hold on with me. Hold on, okay? Okay, and then this is the hard part, okay? Because Jews look white. A lot of people think Jews are white. Are you there? Now, we're going to do a fun little game here. I want you to tell me what pattern you're seeing. Like I've shown you who...
Oh, yeah, and then he gets them to look up, like, happy white woman, and they see that every picture on Google is just, like, interracial couples. So he's done pretty good with this. I mean, I'm surprised and impressed by how well he's done with this type of tactic. So good on him for that. I've thought in the past about, like, showing up at college campuses dressed like a Jew and claiming to be Jewish and trying to read people, like, from that perspective, because they have done so well in poisoning the well for white men. If you are a straight white man, the average, like, college-aged person, whether they be white, actually, if they're white themselves, the programming is almost stronger than if you're talking to a non-white. But the average college-aged white person is so deep in this, like, anti-white brainwashing that as a straight white male, you're basically, like, the genuinely being prejudiced against. Like, the judgment against you is already in effect, and they're not going to listen to a single word you say unless you're, like, bowing down and supplicating as an ally or whatever. So to present yourself in this way, it's pretty funny. I think I'm still old school in the sense that, like, I believe actors are kind of low class. To be an actor is sort of a low class gig, and I agree with Nietzsche when he basically had this section in The Gay Science where he says acting is like the natural proclivity of women and Jews. Which I could pull up if you guys want to read that. It's an interesting little section, but acting is like the hallmark of women and Jews. And so I never went through with, like, dressing up like a Jew or going to a college campus like that because I cannot act. I'm not a good actor. Never wanted to be. I find it sort of reprehensible. So I do have some mixed feelings about this. Like, I would never do it. I feel like it's degrading, but he does it really well, almost too well. But it's nice to see young college-aged women being at least, like, getting their toes dipped into the red pill waters. So Schmuck Puppet says, Handsome Truth is an actor. Yes. Let me find that section from the Gay Science on acting. Let's see. I need to get a full text of Gay Science. Okay, here it's section 361, the problem of the actor. Here we go. The problem of the actor. I'll move this. Oops. The problem of the actor has disquieted me the longest. I was uncertain, and am still sometimes so, whether one could not get at the dangerous conception of artist, a conception hitherto treated with unpardonable leniency, from this point of view. So can we get from the problem of the actor to the conception of the artist? Falsity with a good conscience. Delight in dissimulation. So he's describing the actor. Falsity with a good conscience. So being false with a good conscience. Delight in dissimulation, breaking forth as power. And that's actually what's happening. He's describing what Handsome Truth is doing in this exactly. He's performing a falsity with good conscience. He's delighting in dissimulation. And the delight comes from a sense of the dissimulation, the acting, the falsity as coming forth as power, as a feeling of I'm powerful in doing this. It gives me a certain ability that I wouldn't have had otherwise. Pushing aside, overflowing, and sometimes extinguishing the so-called character. The inner longing to play a role, to assume a mask, to put on an appearance. A surplus of capacity for adaptations of every kind, which can no longer gratify themselves in the service of the nearest and narrowest utility. All that, perhaps, does not pertain solely to the actor in himself. Such an instinct would develop most readily in families of the lower class of the people, who have had to pass their lives in absolute dependence, under shifting pressure and constraint, who, to accommodate themselves to their conditions, to adapt themselves always to new circumstances, had again and again to pass themselves off and represent themselves as different persons. Thus, having gradually qualified themselves to adjust the mantle to every wind, thereby almost becoming the mantle itself, as masters of the embodied and incarnated art of eternally playing the game of hide-and-seek, which one calls mimicry among the animals, until at last this ability, stored up from generation to generation, has become domineering, irrational, and intractable, till, as instinct, it begins to command the other instincts, and begets the actor, the artist, the buffoon, the pantaloon, the jack-pudding, the fool, and the clown in the first place, also the classical type of servant, Gil Blas. For in such types one has the precursors of the artist, and often enough even of the genius. Also, under higher social conditions, there grows under similar pressure a similar species of man. Only the histrionic instinct is there for the most part held strictly in check by another instinct, For example, among diplomatists. So diplomatists are a cousin of the actor, according to Nietzsche. For the rest, I should think that it would always be open to a good diplomatist to become a good actor on the stage, provided his dignity allowed it. As regards the Jews, however, the adaptable people par excellence, we should, in conformity to this line of thought, expect to see among them a world historical institution from the very beginning for the rearing of actors. A genuine breeding place for actors. And in fact, the question is very pertinent just now. What good actor at present is not a Jew? Should we ask Handsome Truth that question? What good actor at present is not a Jew? The Jew also, as a born literary man, as the actual ruler of the European press, exercises this power on the basis of his histrionic capacity, for the literary man is essentially an actor. He plays the part of expert, of specialist. Finally, women. If we consider the whole history of women, are they not obliged, first of all, and above all, to be actresses? If we listen to doctors who have hypnotized women, or finally, if we love them and let ourselves be hypnotized by them, what is always divulged thereby? That they give themselves airs, even when they give themselves. Woman is so artistic. So, an interesting perspective on acting. Which I kind of agree with. It's an old school sense, like this line right here. A diplomatist would become a good actor on the stage, provided his dignity allowed it. You know, this was 100 years ago, a little over 100 years ago. And the general feeling among European culture was that acting is like a dirty thing, a undignified thing. Now, we live in a world where actors are like the greatest celebrated. It's like one of the highest possible roles that people can conceive of in society. I mean, the average person wants to be an actor now. You look at the kids these days in grade school, when they write down what they want to be when they grow up, one of the most common answers is they want to be a YouTube influencer. That's just an actor. Actors are, like, to the average person, actors are like the demigods. They're like the pantheon of our society. And all of their opinions and thoughts are filtered through actors. And if 100 years ago Nietzsche was telling us every good actor was a Jew, the institution of acting, Jews were basically like a genuine breeding place for actors, that their specialty was being actors, that they owned the press, and that they played these roles of expert and specialist in the press, which is basically just being an actor of a literary type, to call yourself an expert or a specialist and then publish your opinions in the press in order to influence people. That's like the literary version of being an actor. And if that were the case 100 years ago, and today we live in a society where actors are like considered the frickin' elite class, or at least part of the elite class, a very important part of the elite class, that's just another circumstantial way that we can sort of realize that who are we ruled by? Who's really in charge of our society? I'll leave that answer up to you. Neon Moon says, didn't Romans look down upon actors too? Yes, that's something that I have heard as well. Star Rover says, Germ live streaming is a good feeling. Thank you. Men Like God says, this may be a good segue into Theater Kid Occupied Government and how John Doyle is an intellectual plagiarist. Yeah. I watch... So John Doyle is... At first, I thought he was, like, interesting. But the more I saw of him, the more I'm like, he kind of just waters down better messages from better thinkers on sort of the far, sort of like the fringe right. He waters down ideas that other people came up with and kind of just does a worse job presenting them. And it was a shame to see, because, so this is the video he's talking about. Theater Kid Occupied Government.
Special are the ones that you can't see. Hey everyone, I'm killing itself.
And it's not even worth playing any clips from, because it's he presents this idea in sort of a boring way. But this idea, Theater Kid, literally the phrase Theater Kid Occupied Government, which he repeats multiple times.
Government. Who's there? It's Theater Kid Occupied Government. Theater Kid Occupied Government. Theater Kid Occupied Government.
Okay, so he obviously really likes that phrase. So I would be surprised if he never Googled it. Because if he had Googled it, Theater Kid Occupied Government, the first thing that comes up is John Doyle now, which wasn't the case before he put the video out. Before he put that video out, and the day he put the video out, the first result was Schwab, Real Human Schwab, and his Substack, Theater Kid Occupied Government, which was posted more than 2 years ago, obviously, like, way before John Doyle. So in John Doyle researching this video, he absolutely had to have come across Schwab's Substack, which, you know, he's got 70 likes. He's got 7 comments on here. Schwab gets a pretty good audience for his writing. But look at Doyle, man. He's got 100,000 views. You know, why not at least acknowledge that other people before you looked into this and coined the term? At least, you know, give a nod to the guy who coined the term and did a much better job talking about the idea than he did, by the way. Schwab is one of my favorite writers on the E-Right here. I mean, even just like, look at the first paragraph. Something quite disturbing is happening on the world stage. A truly grotesque spectacle is unveiling itself. One by one, all the world actors are being replaced with literal actors and jesters. The line between the fictive and the factual is vanishing. The stage is an ontological abyss creeping toward the audience. In this theater of cruelty, wherein the spectator becomes an unwilling participant in his own theatrical experience. Quote, the spectacle will be extended by elimination of the stage to the entire hall of the theater, and will scale the walls up from the ground on the light catwalks, and will physically envelop the spectator and immerse him in a constant bath of light, images, movement, and noise. Many have asked, is Biden's new disinformation czarina qualified? Few have queried, is she even human? This is the question we will endeavor to answer. So, Schwab has this poetic way of writing that is so evocative to me. It's so interesting. He's got a knack for that. But John Doyle, what did he do? Oh, he even starts with the girl that Schwab mentioned at the start of his article. This was the Biden's new disinformation czarina. I forget her name, but this is who started Schwab's article. And John Doyle also starts with her.
By saying them in Congress or a mainstream outlet, so intentions are slightly less atrocious. It's how you hide a little lie. It's how you hide a little...
Theater kid occupied government. Theater kid occupied government.
World for a child to grow up.
Western man, you must quickly choose. ERTAC.com. Bad. Okay, dude. So, yeah. Not only is that inaccurate, it's not even real. Like, you don't have to be either or. You have to be both of those things. You need to be strong. You need to be of traits to possess. And even now, you don't even have nerds anymore. Like, when you're saying that, you are referring to iPad kids. We've definitely got iPad kids. And, dude, honestly, like, even the iPad kids, like, the genuinely weird kids, those are, like, the best people. If there's one thing I miss, it's getting to see iPad kids every day. Because, one, like...
So he, like, goes into this weird talk about, like, differentiating actors or theater kids from nerds or what. It's just like very low level analysis. It's boring. It's unfortunate. He should have taken even more ideas from Schwab if he wanted this to be interesting. But anyway, that's all I got for that here. Let's see what's going on, you guys. What's going on in the chat? Familiar asks, have you ever watched Ukraine and so-called democracy? No. Is that on YouTube? Let's check it out. Oh, it's 45 minutes, but here, I'll give it a like so I can watch it later. Or we can watch it now. Why not? I'm not doing anything.
Shalom. Привет. Как дела? Salut tout le monde. And hello. Welcome
hello.
To Eastern Europe. Yeah, so I think today I want to just rant about democracy and what's going on in the Western world and the Western propaganda. Let's talk about Russia again. Just really hammer out democracy and the nonsense going on in Ukraine. And forgive me, I have to walk by some angry dogs. You know, they don't have doorbells here, they have dogs. And when you live here long enough, you can actually tell each house by the dog bark, so you know when people are passing certain houses. But anyways, let's go for a walk. And yeah, first of all, like, what's going on? I think there's like 20,000 so far Westerners who have signed up to join as volunteers to fight the evil Russians. And the brave Ukrainian forces, well, they're just fighting the Russians, and the Russians just suck, and Ukraine is just badass. And we're just gonna kind of debunk some of this stuff. And again, my stance is neutral. If the Russians pushed over and conquered this land here, I wouldn't be scared. I mean, they'd probably arrest me for potentially being a spy or something. I don't know. I'm sure I'd have to go through something, but I'm not scared of Vladimir Putin or the Russians. I'm more scared of NATO and the Western nonsense that's kind of being pushed in. But anyways, 20,000 idiots in the name of democracy have joined up to fight against the Russians.
I'm fighting for democracy because democracy is precious and one man shouldn't decide that another country shouldn't have it.
And this is just, you know, some of these guys.
That guy looks straight out of Reddit. That guy was like, you know that guy's got a fucking Reddit account. You just know it.
And one man shouldn't decide that another country shouldn't have it.
And this is just, you know, some of these guys, no military experience, never trained with the army, bunch of maybe gym jockeys, and they want glory. And I'm going to tell you right now that war is only glorious to those who have never experienced it. And you boys that are going to volunteer to fight for the democracy, which doesn't exist in Ukraine. Ukraine is a totalitarian oligarchy mafia. All right? There's no democracy in Ukraine. Ukraine is evil. Okay? My last girlfriend was a Russian from Ukraine, and the stories she told me, you know, she had her sister had a police officer bang on the door, you know, wanting to come in. And in Ukraine, you can't just open the door for the police. You actually have to call the real police and go, did you send a cop to my house? Because men will dress as police officers in Ukraine just to get access to your house to rob you. Yeah.
Yeah, I believe
it. Some kind of football, soccer, whatever you call it, event that Europe was hosting in Ukraine. And I'll try to find sources for this. And apparently, the Germans, because the Germans, you know, those evil Germans, said to Ukraine, like, because it's a European event and Europeans are coming, you got to do something about the dog problem. All your wild cats and dogs.
Send in the Haitians.
But Germany decides to send like millions of euros of, you know, of sleepy medicine to put them down to sleep, to put them down humanely. So what
they could have just sent in the Haitians. Yeah, someone's saying this analysis is tired. It is kind of boring. I thought it would be I don't know. Maybe he gets more into interesting things over here. Oh, he's talking about Rome and Athens. Yeah, I don't want to watch this for the next 40 minutes. Let's see what else is going on. Can we get the official Apollonian Germ diet plan? You look a lot healthier than you did on your last live. You mean like the live I did a couple days ago? Or the one that I did months ago? I don't really have like a diet plan per se. And it's funny that you say that now because the last couple weeks I've been eating like crap because my wife is with the kids visiting family. So they come back this coming weekend. And I haven't been getting nice home-cooked meals. Green Fez is still on the split screen is better idea. I'm not changing the format as it is today. But anyway, so I haven't been eating well the last couple weeks. But in general, I eat a lot of eggs. I eat a lot of meat. I do have usually a little bit of vegetables. With every dinner, you know, there's like a portion of vegetables on the plate. So nothing really special. I'm not on like a carnivore diet or anything like that, but Lorson, nice to see you. Graham says, I haven't seen any videos or live streams from you in a long time. Yes, because I haven't been doing any. The place that I was living before, I didn't have really the space to have like a nice setup, and the kids would be sleeping like 15 feet away, so there was no way for me to live stream comfortably. But now I've moved into a new place. I've got a studio in the basement. Nobody is nearby to be disturbed by a late night stream. And yeah, so I plan on being back. I plan on putting effort into the channel again and doing weekly live streams. I want to do like 3 live streams a week. Yeah, so I'm trying to put more energy into it. Paul says, "Hey, first time catching you live." Well, nice to see you, Paul. Broccoli is best greenery. I do like broccoli. I like broccoli with a lot of butter on it. John Smith asks, "I remember subscribing after a stream you were a guest on and your power went out." That was with Millennial Woes on his Millennial. We've got a Lithuanian in the chat. Yes, good. Yeah, the first half of the stream was talking about the Drasius Kedys affair. So if you want to go back to the beginning and check that out, I kind of read the story and gave some thoughts. But yeah, and actually that Millennial that I did with Woes, I think that was a good topic, and I want to do sort of like a better presentation on it, have a bunch of videos lined up, have a lot of the sources that I was mentioning lined up so we can read sections of it and go through my whole presentation in sort of a tighter, more concise way, and without the interruption of losing my power for like, I don't know what that was, like 10 minutes I lost power for. It was ridiculous. I had to go on my phone for the last half of the interview. So it'd be fun to go back to that topic and give it a better treatment. Land of the Blind was theater kid government predictive programming. I've never even heard about Land of the Blind. That guy looks like Karl Marx. Yeah, I've never seen this movie. Oh, it's funny though that you bring this movie up, because it looks like Jacob Isaacs was in that movie. And no, it's not. This guy. No, he's different. Never mind. The topic was good, but the stream was scuffed. That's true. Oh, well, what else can we get into? How long have I been going for here? Almost 2 hours. We still got 49 people watching. Very nice. Well, I don't know. If you guys don't have any other questions, then maybe I'll sign off. I could always go back to Twitter and just go into some of my old likes and try to find an interesting topic. I'm trying to get into the habit of like making note of viral topics on Twitter so I can give you my take on them. But I just like too many things at this point on Twitter. I need to be more selective with my liking. The recent assassination attempt, Graham McCann asks. I haven't heard much about it because I've been preparing this evening for the live stream, just like getting links up and refreshing myself about the facts, and I only just like briefly saw mention of it. Is there a yesterday's live? It wasn't yesterday. It was a couple days ago. If I said yesterday, I misspoke. But it was a couple days ago, and there wasn't really any direction. It was just kind of a test stream, so I put it on unlisted. But if you want, I could drop a link in the chat. But there really wasn't any main presentation or anything to it. But here, I'll put a link in the chat. Neon Moon asks, vaccines, pro any or anti all? You know, my children haven't been given any at this point. I'm not against them on principle, but we currently don't plan to give them any, and they haven't gotten any. So yeah, we're not sure. We got to look into it more. I haven't really done enough research, and that's why we haven't done it. I've heard all of the stories of, you know, adverse effects from vaccines and the connection to autism, and I've heard a few clips of RFK Jr. and those sorts of claims that are out there and all that kind of stuff. So I'm like vaguely aware of it, but I haven't really dug down into it. I've heard the argument that's pretty convincing to me. Ivan Illich kind of makes this argument that with a lot of the diseases that, like polio or tuberculosis or these other, you know, like diseases that used to be virulent, you know, mass killing diseases, that they were actually already on a steep decline prior to the introduction of the vaccines, and that sort of they basically like jumped in front of the parade and acted like they were leading it from the start, that they, you know, the vaccines only rolled out after the disease was already on like a 90% decline, and they took full credit for the decline after the fact and all that. So you know, I'm in general, my philosophy on medicine and health is aligned with Ivan Illich. If you ever want to read Medical Nemesis by Ivan Illich, and that gives you a pretty good picture of how I understand medicine, which is, you know, health is a feeling. Health is a state, a condition of life where you don't feel like any intervention is necessary, where you're able to live and thrive and do what you want without feeling ill or without feeling like encumbered by any kind of like bodily problems. So that is the condition of health. But the modern perspective on it is basically like health cannot be determined by you internally. Health is like this objective, measurable thing that you need a doctor to, you know, observe you and take measurements of you and apply certain technologies to your body, etc., to, you know, put you into this condition that they have determined to be health. So that's like the main philosophical difference, is like, is health an internal feeling, a state of life that you can feel subjectively within yourself, or is health this like objective, measurable, scientific thing that you need an expert, you need a doctor to like intervene in your life and observe you, measure you, etc., perform tests on you, to qualify you as healthy. And that's like my main problem with the modern medical system, is that they basically have that perspective. And that perspective actually is like, it presents a problem for people like me. I don't know if I ever told this story on live stream, but when my third child was born, my boy Edward, when he was born and we were in the hospital, we were confronted by this doctor in the neonatal ICU. Because Edward has problems with his kidneys. To make a long story short, we were afraid that he wasn't even going to make it because he has problems with his kidneys. And after he was born, they took ultrasounds of his kidneys, and they found that actually the problem wasn't nearly as bad as they expected. He's got basically, like, they thought that his kidneys were cystic, that they were full of like little sacs or cysts that are not functional. But it turned out that both of his kidneys were duplicated. So he's got like a top portion of the kidney on each side that is cystic and a bottom portion that is healthy. And they didn't see the bottom portions when my wife was pregnant with him. And because of that, they believed that he basically had no kidney function, and they thought he wouldn't survive if he didn't get a kidney transplant and all this other stuff. So we were in the ICU after he was born. They put him right into the neonatal ICU. And because of the problems, you know, the doctors were a lot more focused on us, and we had a lot of doctors that were coming in and out. We had we were given basically like celebrity treatment there. And one of these doctors, an Indian guy, came into our NICU room, and he asked us what pediatrician we have lined up. Like, who is our pediatrician? Who is Edward going to be seeing once he gets out of the doctor, or once he gets out of the hospital? And we told him, like, we need to find a pediatrician. We actually don't have a pediatrician. And he's like, oh right away he like starts like acting, what are you saying? Can that be true? And like getting really like concern trolling, basically. And we're like, yeah, but we're gonna find one. And he goes, well, but what about for your other kids? Haven't they been getting checkups? Who have you been going to for a pediatrician? We're like, well, we haven't brought our other kids in for a doctor visit since like my daughter, when she was 9 months. We took her to the hospital because she had a high fever for an extended period of time. That was the last time my daughter saw the doctor. And my son saw the doctor last, I think it is like 6 months or somewhere around there. I don't know. We basically like didn't bring them in for regular checkups because we weren't planning on getting vaccines. So, at a regular checkup, all they do is measure the height of the child, the weight. They do these basic, very, very basic measurements on the child to, like I'm saying, make sure the child is healthy. But we did all of that at home. We'd been tracking their growth at home, and they had been growing along all the like standard guidelines that we could find online, that these medical institutions post online. So what's the point in bringing them in? If they're healthy, they're developing fine, we can see that, we can tell. Why bring them into a doctor? So that's basically what we told him. And this fucking asshole, this arrogant piece of shit, who I didn't fight at the time because I'm in a vulnerable position at that moment. I'm in a vulnerable position at the hospital as a parent with a child that we weren't sure if he was healthy or sick. We weren't sure if he was going to like survive. 2 children at home, and a doctor that's embedded in this institution that has the power to, like, with the snap of his fingers, rain social workers down upon our family and make our lives hell. So I'm in this vulnerable position when this arrogant fucking asshole starts coming at us saying things like, oh, well, you really need to get them in to have these checkups done, and that actually it's considered like negligence in if you don't give them in for at least one checkup a year, and this type of negligence is the kind of thing that gets kids taken away from parents, and you should really be careful. And I want to hear that you've got an appointment with a pediatrician, not just for Edward, the infant with the kidney problems, but for your other two children too. And I want to hear that you've got appointments set up by tomorrow, or basically like, or else. And it fucking pissed me off. I was sitting there just like staring at him, like with this look on my face of like, are you fucking serious, dude? Like, what the fuck is going on right now? And all I could do at that moment was basically say, like, my reaction was I stood up, because I was sitting down while he was lecturing me. Oh, and a funny thing too about this, a detail that I forgot was, before all this happened, after I gave my spiel about our philosophy, he goes, okay, do you want me to be honest with you? Do you want me to tell you how I really think right now? And I'm like, yeah, what? Speak your mind. I want to hear the truth from you. I don't want you to lie to me. Tell me what you're really thinking. So that's when he like launched into his righteous speech about how, children need to see a doctor once a year. That's the law, this and that. So after all that, and I'm staring at him with this look of disbelief on my face, I stand up and like I like tower over him. I'm like at least 6 inches taller than him. And I look down on him and I'm like, you know what? I appreciate your concern, and we'll do what you're asking us to do. But that once that's done, that's it. All right. I appreciate your concern, and can you leave us alone now? We'll do what you're telling us to do. Okay. And that was it. That was the last time I saw him. And we did set up that pediatrician appointment, and we got the kids in so that, we at least now have this history of them being deemed healthy by the experts, so that we can't, they can't come at us for that. But that was the last time I saw him. However, the next day, I had to go home and take care of the other two kids. My wife was still at the hospital with the newborn, getting ready to come home and meet us at home. And just before she was about to check out, that fucking asshole came back to her when she was alone. And he asked her, like, in all seriousness, unironically, he asked her if she felt safe at home. Basically, like, insinuating that I'm abusive. And when my wife told me about that, I was like so determined to get a lawyer and fucking sue this guy. And, because I looked it up and it turns out there is no law that you have to take your kids in once a year for a checkup. That's bullshit. That's not even true. I was so determined to like get a lawyer and sue this fucking guy. But I guess like the situation in Lithuania, where time goes by and the stinging pain of injustice kind of just fades away, and people forget about the wrongs that have been done to them, I also kind of just forgot and moved on, and because nothing came of it. The kids saw a pediatrician. They're all checked out. They're on record now as being healthy. So we're not like worried that some social worker is going to come and try to take them away. But yeah, what an experience. What an arrogant fucking asshole. I hope that I see him again someday. I'll never forget his face. Anyway, I'm done with that little speech. I kind of stopped looking at the chat for a while, so let's see. Bobby Barrow says, I was chronically ill for 9 years because the doctors could not read my blood tests properly. I had low iron for 9 years and had so much brain fog, it was hard for me to work full time. That's horrible. Yeah, iron is something that's really easily detected, so that's bizarre. Dissolving Illusions is another good book by Suzanne Humphreys. Interesting. I'll have to check that out. Copy. Let's see. Let's see if is it on Wikipedia? No. Of course not. Looks interesting. Is there an online copy anywhere? Maybe I'll have to order a copy. 22 bucks. Fuck. The good books are always expensive. Oh, Neon Moon. They always target the mothers. Yeah, I was amazed by that. I was like, what did he expect? Like, for my wife to be like, yes, please save me. The man that I just had my third child with. Save me, Indian doctor. Take me away from this hell. Like, what the fuck? And I know that they have cameras and microphones in those fucking hospital rooms. I'm sure they do. And every single one of those hospital rooms, they're spying on you. I know it. Anytime you're in a hospital, you should assume that you're being spied on. That's sad. Bobby Barrow, hope you're better now. Jay Dyer. I almost debated Jay Dyer, but I just never really followed through with it. I think he was willing to debate me, but I never followed through with it. But yeah, Dyer and his like bizarre his little like logic puzzles that he has invented to prove the existence of God. They're so funny. They're so tedious to me. I mean, it's to think that you can create a syllogism that proves the existence of God is so silly to me. Like, yes, if I put these 3 sentences in a row, now I've unlocked the magic seal that proves the existence of God. Yeah, I mean, the problem with trying to prove with a syllogism is that logic always begins with preconceived axioms. Whatever axiom you begin with in logic is just like something you've assumed. So the conclusion of a logical argument always, the only thing you can get in an actual like modus ponens deductive argument where the conclusion is logically deduced from the premises is a restatement of the premises. You never get any new information in the conclusion of a syllogism. Graham, have you seen a lot about the Haitian problem in places like Springfield? I have been following. I've been following that. Yep. Yeah, it's a shame that like the big topic in that whole controversy right now is the whole like eating cats, eating dogs thing, because that's not even like 2% of the real problem. The real problem is that this freaking town has now had its demographics permanently changed. And they never took a vote on it. They never had a consensus on it. The average person would never have agreed to it. Excuse me. Haven't watched all your streams and vids, but have you ever bashed Vaush? I wouldn't bash Vaush with a fucking 39.5-foot pole. He has nothing to say that I'm interested in commenting on. Yes, demographics and immigration. Exactly. Well, I am starting to feel my bladder. I finished my tea. So I think I'm going to log out pretty soon. Which is too bad. It looks like we keep on getting new viewers. 64 viewers now. But yeah, it's already 11:37. I got work in the morning. But yeah, like I said earlier, I'm trying to focus energy back into this channel. Do at least 1 to 3 live streams a week at this point. And my next live stream, what I'd like to do is have a section. I mean, I've been on now for over 2 hours, 2 hours and 20 minutes. So I have a section of at least, I don't know, 45 minutes to an hour long. Gromby asks what kind of tea. It was green tea. With a little lemon. Yusuf says we should do an RSM stream. Yeah, let's do it. Let's do a stream on rational science. But anyway, I was saying at least 45 minutes to an hour on the next stream, where I will let people call in. I got to figure out the best way to do that, but I want to allow people to call in and, you know, not just have like a guest on that's like, you know, pre-planned or whatever, but open phone lines. Let anybody call in, talk for however long they want to talk, 5-10 minutes, whatever it might be, and bring up whatever topics you want to talk about, you know, just spitball with me, whatever. So I want to figure out how to do that by the next stream, and we can look forward to that. But anyway, nice to chat with you all tonight. Hope you have a good one, and stay safe out there.